I've always found it a bit mean that Jesus, during the last week of Ordinary Time, when we're about to enter the winter months, starts talking about summer being near. But as it goes, we know that we are in the last week of the liturgical year, the last days, really, until Advent starts. And that should come with some great hope and expectation for the coming seasons, for Advent and Christmas for us. And when we think of those joyful seasons, we think of new life. Just like when we get to the end of Lent and Easter, we think of resurrection and new life. A few weeks ago, I was thinking of new life in terms of my service as a priest. I had a young server who came back to serving after the pandemic. He hadn't served since before the pandemic in March of 2020, and he was finally ready to serve. And I was shocked because I met him when he was in middle school, and all of a sudden now he's taller than me. And I said, "What grade are you in now?" And he said, "I'm a freshman." And I said, "Oh, well, then that means you get to wear this one." And I took out a cassock and a surplice for him. And after he put it on, he's like, "This is like what you wear." And I said, "You going to become a priest?" And he goes, "I don't know, if God wants me to." And that openness to a radical call to life, I think, is what we consider missing amongst our young people, where we don't teach our young people to listen to God's voice, but rather to desire what they want, instead of asking God what he wants and then learning to desire that. In my work with young people at Bishop Fenwick High School, as well as in my parishes, I've come to learn that young men are open to the call to the priesthood. Young women are open to the call to the religious life, but nobody ever talks to them about it. The religious ed director heard me telling this young man when I gave him his cassock and surplice, "You're going to be a priest?" And she said, "In my 35 years of working in a parish, I've never heard a priest talk about vocations as much as you do." And I said, "I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing." And I consider it to be a bad thing, because all of us, as Cardinal Sean says, need to make vocations our business. Vocations are everybody's business. The Mass that I chose today is for an increase in vocation to holy orders. But of course, we know that we need an increase in all vocations, men and women who are willing to follow Jesus with their whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, to ask Jesus what he wants of their life, and then to be courageous enough to follow. We know that without the priesthood, we don't have the Eucharist, but without holy families, without men and women giving their lives to each other in the vocation of matrimony, in the sacrament of matrimony, we wouldn't have children being raised in the faith to hear the call to the priesthood or to the religious life. So it's a circle. Just as Jesus talks in the gospel today about the cycle of a year, with summer being the start of new life, and we know that now in this time of year, with leaves falling off of trees and the weather getting colder, an ending of a cycle. So too, we need to be open to whatever cycles the Lord has in our lives. We know that ultimately he's calling us to holiness. And following his words, following Jesus, meeting Jesus in the Gospels, and then being nourished by his words in the sacrament, lead us to know, to be able to stand with our heads held high, knowing that the call of God is permanent for us, that although heaven and earth will pass away, Jesus' words remain. And that should give us all an excitement as we prepare to enter into the season of Advent, where we prepare not just for Jesus' coming at Christmas, not just for his coming at the end of time, but how we welcome him every day in our hearts, how we let him sow the seeds of the harvest every day in the depths of our hearts, and that we would respond with generosity, with faith, and with courage to wherever God is calling us to follow.